I just watched Civil War, a war drama directed by Alex Garland, the same director who brought us two sci-fi movies that I remember really enjoying, especially Annihilation. Now, Civil War, a war drama set in a fractured America. It's a haunting, gritty portrayal of a nation on the brink of collapse. It took me a while to even want to watch this movie because of all the political discord surrounding it. I was conflicted, but now, after watching it, I'm pleased to say that Civil War isn't that politically charged. In fact, Garland actually avoids injecting too much backstory into what caused the Civil War. Instead, we are giving a somewhat neutral perspective of the situation through our journalist protagonists who are experiencing all the fronts of the war as they journey from New York to DC. This is a film that combines pulse-pounding action, eerie cinematography, and some seriously disturbing, powerful images to make it one of the most memorable movies of 2024. In the first 10 minutes, Civil War grabs you by the throat. We are immediately dropped into a protest that quickly turns violent. A classic wartime needle drop is disrupted by an explosion and the chaotic aftermath that follows. There are bodies everywhere. It's a gruesome scene. Everything is dead silent except for some subtle ambient noise and the clear, crisp sound of journalists photographing the horrific scene. This is where we get our first glimpse of a couple of themes of the movie: the desensitization of violence and the cost of conflict. As Lee photographs the scene of the crime, Jesse photographs Lee photographing the scene, showing the difference in perspectives of two images: Lee's desensitization to violence and the psychological and emotional toll this scene has on Jesse. The movie is full of moments like this where everything abruptly stops and is accompanied by this intense, eerie sound design that really works here. The sound sets the tone for the entire film, amplifying the suspense and tension in every scene. The pacing is relentless, and you'll find yourself on the edge of your seat begging for an exit strategy. Every footstep feels like it could be the protagonist's last, and the sound design only enhances that sense of imminent danger. The group of journalist photographers, Lee, Joel, Jesse, and Sammy, traverse the war-torn America, capturing the chaos and horrors of the Second Civil War. The images they encounter throughout the journey are disturbing, graphic, raw, and unflinching. These photographers are not just documenting history, they are bearing witness to humanity at its worst. It's clear that these images are not only symbolic of the chaos around them, but also mirror the inner conflict and transformation of the protagonists themselves. Kirsten Dunst plays Lee, the veteran photographer that's seen too much and is visibly numb to the horrors of war, from actively seeking it out and to get the perfect shot. And Jesse, the young photographer who idolizes Lee, joins the team to learn the ropes of war journalism. So when the group stumbles into these situations, we get to see from both of their perspectives: the hardened veteran who has seen it all and is yet still horrified, and the soft, inexperienced photographer who's oddly feeling the thrill. The visual storytelling is so powerful that it feels like you're right there with them, experiencing the pain, fear, and thrill of each close call. Civil War doesn't shy away from the most intense, spine-chilling sequences. It's not absolute dread from beginning to end. There are moments that will have you gripping your seat, holding your breath, unsure if the next scene will leave you in shock or horror. The action is brutal and real. The movie doesn't rely on flashy spectacle. Instead, it's the raw, unfiltered tension that grabs you. Cinematography shines in these sequences, making you feel like you're living through the characters' terrifying experiences. The final sequence in Washington, D.C. is not only an impressive set piece, it's honestly thrilling until we get to the end, which we'll talk about in a bit. There's another scene in the movie that was all over the marketing with Jesse Plemons, which rightfully so. His portrayal of an American is on the nose, but undeniably bone-chilling, and his character is truly one of the most terrifying parts of the movie. Plemons plays a character who famously says the lines, "Are you an American?" and follows it up with, "What kind of American are you?" with a delivery that screams the protagonists are He's not playing someone you love to hate. I was genuinely terrified of him. Visually, Civil War is stunning. The cinematography is gorgeous, but not in a traditional way. It's more about capturing the haunting beauty of the world that's falling apart. You're constantly reminded of the photographer's perspective as the camera seems to capture the world through their eyes. You can imagine these images becoming iconic pieces of history. One thing that stood out to me was the world building. The country is in the midst of a civil war, but we're giving little clarity on how America got here in the first place. It's unsettling because you're left to piece together the history, and honestly, it's not hard to imagine how things might go south. In such a polarized and broken society, this lack of clear history might frustrate some viewers, but it adds to the realism and raw documentary-like feel of the movie. What's perhaps the most chilling about Civil War is how it feels. The film doesn't feel like a work of fiction, it feels like something that could very easily be unfolding in our own world. If this movie were made 10 years ago, it would have come across as a creative dystopian commentary. But in today's political climate, it feels less like fiction and more like terrifying documentary. You're left asking questions about the world, about the characters, and about how close we might be to a future like this. Now, I won't give away any spoilers, but the ending, it kind of felt like a satire. It kind of reminded me of Nightcrawler, but not in a good way. Without giving away too much, it leaves you with a sense of, really? Did they just do that? But at the same time, I get it. Maybe it was the execution of it all that was a little over the top, but ultimately it stuck out like a sore thumb. It's a tough ending to digest and it leaves you feeling a little empty. Civil War is a disturbing, thrilling movie that's both beautiful and terrifying. Its intense realistic portrayal of a fractured America is something that will probably keep you glued to the news cycles. While the lack of clear history behind the conflict might leave some questions unanswered, the raw emotion and realism are impossible to ignore. Following these journalists allows you to understand how war photography is essential in accounting for these monumental moments in history. But at the same time, the psychological and emotional toll it takes on these individuals. The people behind the camera are just people. The film's haunting imagery, pulse-pounding score, and gut-wrenching final moments make for an experience that's both gripping and unnerving. If you're looking for a thrilling, boots-on-the-ground action war drama, Civil War delivers in spades, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. If they released a book on this showing the history, I would eat that up. Write that down, Garland.